Okay, I think we have everyone in. So good evening, everybody. My name is MP Jasraj Singh Hullan. I'm from Calgary for Islam. I'm also the Shadow Minister for Immigration, Refugees and Citizenships. We are extremely grateful for our leader, the leader of the Her Majesty's Loyal Opposition, Honorable Candice Byrgin, for joining us tonight, taking time out. As you all may know, it's the end of the session. This is the time when things are the busiest. The environment that we have today is absolutely one that we have to always put our full attention to whatever is going on. And I really want to say thank you to each and every one of you from the ethnic media, or I just say media, for everything that you do. You all are absolute pillars of not just your own communities, but for providing information for not just through COVID, but information and the advocacy that you do. I know many of you are small business owners, and it takes a great deal of passion to do what you do. So I just want to say on behalf of all of us, we are absolutely grateful for all the passion you have to be able to advocate for your communities in your language on all the different issues that happen around Canada and abroad. So thank you again for all you're doing. I will limit myself to just saying that many words. I know there's a lot of questions that came in. I will turn this over to our leader, and then we will start questions after that. So over to you, leader. Thank you.
Thank you, Jasraj. Thank you so much for the comments, and thank you everybody for being part of this pretty special press conference. It's pretty special for me. I've never done a press conference like this before with so many of you from different communities, different parts of the country. I am just thrilled to be able to speak with you. I know the work that you've been doing, not only in terms of, I'll just wait, there we go. I know the work that you've been doing, not only as far as outreach, reaching out to your communities, delivering news to them, getting them the story, giving them the facts, and letting your communities decide what they think is just so impressive. And I want you to know how grateful I am for that. I want to give a special shout out tonight to Maria, the Executive Director of National Ethnic Press and Media Council of Canada. I want to thank Madeline, who's the Chair of Canadian Ethnic Media Association, and Kiyu, who's the President of Canadian Ethnic Media Association as well, for your incredible work. I apologize for not pronouncing your last names. I will learn your last names and get to know you, but I just wanted to thank you because from what I've heard, you have been wonderful to work with, and you've done so much to help us. I know what you've been doing as well, not just in terms of delivering the news generally as it's been happening in Ottawa and around the world, but especially during COVID. You've been an amazing contributor to your community as far as getting news out, helping people feel like they mattered, and also what was going on, that they could be a part of it. And that was so important. There was a lot of fear and a lot of concern during COVID, as I know you all know. And so I just want to thank you as well for what you did during COVID. So I look forward to your questions and a good discussion. And like I said, I'm excited about doing this press conference tonight. It's a unique one for me, and I just appreciate you so much. I know that you want to get the news. You want to find out the facts. You want to deliver those facts to your communities, and I just have so much respect for you. So thank you, and let's get to your questions.
Thank you so much, leader, for those remarks. So just a little bit of housekeeping, everybody. I will call out names as I have them listed in front of me here from the team. If you can have your question ready and just keep it concise to just the question you asked. We won't have time for follow-up because we want to respect everyone's time and try to make sure that we get everyone's questions in. If we have time at the end, we will have more questions. So I'll open up the floor. And the first question we have here is from Jasleen from PTC Punjabi. So Jasleen, if you could unmute yourself, please, and ask the question that you had submitted. Thank you.
Hello, Ms. Byrgin. Thank you so much for your time. This is Jasleen from PTC Punjabi, and my question to you is, how do you plan to lead the party in the next few months until a permanent leader is chosen?
Well, thank you. And the funny thing I joke about a little bit is, some people have said, congratulations on your new role. You're the new leader. And I joke and I say, well, but I'm over halfway done now. So I say I'm already on the back nine, so to speak. So I'll tell you what I'll tell you very quickly what my priorities were. And I believe that we have fulfilled them. So my top priority was unifying our caucus, bringing our caucus together. When I say unify, I said to my caucus, it didn't mean that we were going to agree on everything. I'm not one of these people that thinks we have to agree and have the same opinion. We actually like disagreeing and helping each other understand different perspectives. So my first priority has been and continues to be the caucus, who represent Canadians from right across the country, every region of this country. Secondly, I wanted conservatives to be proud to be conservatives again. And I'm very excited because although we don't have the final numbers, I can tell you our membership is over 600,000 from the leadership race. And that's because people are excited about our party, they're excited about the leadership race, and they're tired of the current government. So that was my second priority. Thirdly, I wanted to lead our party and our country and our party and our caucus in a way that made Canadians see that we were reasonable, that we were compassionate, and that we were offering solutions. I sort of joked, I said to caucus, I wanted to make sure Canadians didn't think, we lost our minds. And I believe that we've done that. So that is how I've led and how I'm going to continue to lead until middle of September. And then I will continue to be hopefully a leader within our caucus movement, not necessarily because of my title, but just being a conservative colleague and a conservative member.
Thank you so much. I wish you good luck.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leader. I promise I won't do this anymore, but I must also say that our party and our caucus has been so united under Candice. I cannot thank her enough. There was a time period where things were a little iffy, but I've never seen us so united, and we're so excited for the future. I won't make any more comments after that. I just had to say that. So thank you for the question. Next, we have Randy Reed from Vibe 105.5. Go ahead, Randy.
Thanks a lot, Desraj. Randy Reed from Vibe 105. So real simple question. I just wanted to know, how will you be working to address visibility and build connection among young Black voters in the coming election?
Randy, I'm a big believer in speaking to people and building relationships based on their heart, their values, what they want for their children, for their communities. And I believe that as conservatives, we have not done a good enough job spreading ourselves out. We've been quite focused, as you know, on internal politics and leaderships and then elections. And I think we've seen some good models in the past of conservatives who have reached out to communities, gone, enjoyed their food, their music, their culture, but at that time speaking directly to their hearts and to what affects them. So in answering that, I think Black communities, just like communities right across the country, want the best for their children. They want to be able to afford gas and food and maybe buy a house. They want to be able to live in a safe community where they're not worried about guns and violence. They want to be proud to be Canadian. They want to live in a unified country. And so I believe that as conservatives, as we continue to take those steps to build those relationships and then talk about the things that matter to Canadians, regardless of what ethnic community they might be from or even what region of the country they're from, I think that we can connect to people that way. And that would be my hope and the way that I believe we should function.
Thank you so much for that, Leader. And Randy, thank you for that very thoughtful question. Next, we have Babu George from Northern Light Media. Babu, go ahead.
Hi, good evening, Honorable Candice Byrgan. This is the question for you on behalf of Northern Light, the official media publication of Canada First Race Fellowship. Yeah, the question, what qualities should the next Conservative Party leader have to bring the party back in power?
Well, I believe that we need a leader who is consistently conservative. And when I say that, I mean, there are 4 things that make us conservative. And I believe that most Canadians actually believe in as well. And I would say, first and foremost, fiscal responsibility. The majority of Canadians are fiscally responsible. They run their businesses, they raise their families, they operate their organizations, they live their lives in a fiscally responsible way. That's the Canadian way. I believe most Canadians are also believers in law and order in terms of making sure that our communities are safe, that criminals are behind bars, but also that there's help for people who need help, whether it's drug addictions, mental illness. So fiscal responsibility, law and order, national unity, freedom of expression and belief. Those are the fundamentals of being a conservative. And I believe that the next leader, who, by the way, I'm just one vote. So I'm just speaking as one voter. Our membership will decide, or over 600,000 members will decide who they want to be leader. But I believe that a consistently conservative leader who articulates those beliefs and then also articulates to Canadians that we don't have to agree on everything, that we can disagree. We can even come from different regions and different communities. There are things that we can disagree on and still be unified. And I believe that we've seen the politics of wedge and divide and stigmatize really hurt. And my message to the new leader would be bring people together, not in uniformity, not in we are all the same, but in that we have different beliefs and upbringings and things that are important. And I think that is really what Canada is about.
Thank you so much, Leader, for that. Babu, thank you for that. Again, very thoughtful question. Next, we have Vinod John from E-News Digest. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Jasraj, and good evening, Ms. Candice. My question is related to an all-time hot topic, that is immigration. What is your view on Trudeau government's current immigration policies, and how different would your policies be from those of the Liberal Party, and how beneficial would they be to students and newcomers who land in Canada with great dreams?
Well, that's such an important question because of the importance that immigration always has been to our beautiful country. I was talking to somebody this week, and I think all of us have an immigration story, whether it's, for me, my parents were born in Canada, my grandparents were born in Canada, my great-grandparents were just a year old, but there's still, and you talk to Canadians who are brand new Canadians, and so immigration, and I'll just say this, my riding in Southern Manitoba needs immigrants. We need skilled laborers. We are just so anxious to continually welcome immigrants into our region. I'll tell you this, I believe that actually up until Justin Trudeau, immigration policy had been fairly consistent in terms of how immigration was approached through various governments. I think Stephen Harper did some very good things, the super visas and other things we did that were very important, but by and large, immigration policies were fairly consistent. I would say under Justin Trudeau, they have changed and not for the better. I think truthfully it started. You will remember this. This was back in 2016 when people were able to just run across the border and on the US side of things and really brought down the credibility of our immigration system. Our immigration system needs to be fair and compassionate and predictable. We have to be able to know who's coming to Canada, and people who have waited need to be able to know that there's a fair process for them to get into the country. Unfortunately, Justin Trudeau really turned that all upside down, and the immigration system for so many became a much longer waiting game, and it became very unfair. So we need to get back to a place where we get through the backlogs that they've created. And Jazz could speak even better than I can on this topic because he's so well versed on it. We need to get through the backlog. Conservatives are committed. That's what we did when we're in government, get through the backlogs. We believe also that temporary foreign workers there needs to be a permanent pathway for them. As well, we have so many people in Canada right now who, for different reasons, don't have their paperwork in order, but they are skilled workers. They are paying their taxes. They are following the rule of law, raising their families. We need them to have a very quick and certain way to permanent residency and citizenship. So at the end of the day, we need people coming to Canada who will work and raise their families and pay their taxes and help each other. We also haven't even talked about things like families looking after families. When you think about childcare, I'm a big believer that we need to reward families helping families. And that is in many cases, immigrant families helping immigrant families and their neighborhoods. So conservatives have a lot of good ideas. We've seen them implemented under Stephen Harper. We're not saying everything all Liberals did was bad. We're not at all, but we think that unfortunately Trudeau has really watered down and taken away the credibility of our immigration system and certainly not made it better. So we'd like to see some improvements in the ways that I just described.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Leader. Maybe this is a good time for me to pause to say that question that Vinod had. If anyone has any follow-ups or they would like a one-on-one or maybe some more clarification later, feel free to email in to Katerina in the Leader's office, and we can follow up. Like Vinod, you had an immigration question. If there's something you'd like to follow up with me or the Leader later on, please, everyone on this call, feel free to do that. I just wanted to make sure we're respecting time and getting all your questions in. So if we've missed anyone, I think it's a good time. Just keep that in mind. We can always follow up at a later time or give a written response. So thank you again. And Vinod, thank you for that question. Next, we have Ron East from the J.ca. And go ahead, Ron.
Hello, thank you very much. My question is more on a global perspective. How will the Conservative government approach the Iran nuclear deal as we look at it as the nuclear crisis right now? And would a Conservative government support Israel in reserving its rights to act unilaterally to ensure that Iran doesn't achieve a nuclear bomb?
Thank you, Ron, for that question. Conservatives have, I can speak under Stephen Harper. I was in Stephen Harper's government, and I can tell you on both of your questions. First of all, we are very strong supporters of Israel. Israel is the only democratic, free nation in a very difficult region of the world, and a nation that supports, believes, and lives by equality, freedom of the press, a just court system. Not a perfect nation, but the only nation in that region that is democratic, free, and equal. And we believe firmly in Israel's right to defend herself. Now, we also do believe that the people of Palestine and that region also have a right to live peacefully, and they deserve a government that is duly elected and that is looking after the best interests of the people that they represent. In terms of Iran, we've always been very suspicious of the regime in Iran. We even now, I know I've been quite active. A number of conservatives and liberals, frankly, have been part of working to see freedom come to Iran. We were disappointed when the liberals came into power. Their initial posture towards Iran, they did seem to back down from that, but we were worried they seemed quite naive when it comes to dealing with countries like Iran or regimes in Iran or China, for example. So we don't believe that the regime can be trusted. We have actually, as you probably know, we've called for the IRGC to be listed on the terrorist list. That has not happened, which is again just another signal of, I think, naivety. And I'm not sure who the liberals are trying to placate or where they're trying to gain political points. We're not sure, but we believe in principled foreign policy. You support a nation like Canada should support like-minded nations that believe and exercise democracy, freedom, rule of law, the things that we value. That doesn't mean that we ignore other countries, but we work with those in those countries who are aspiring for the same things. So that would be our position to date. Now, again, we're having a leadership race. So when the new leader comes on, these will be important questions that I believe that person will be articulating and talking about.
Thank you so much for that. Next, we have Joseph Wilson from Sangamam Publications. Go ahead.
Hi, good evening.
Good evening.
My question is, what is your view on the current coalition between the Liberal and the NDP?
Thanks, Joseph, for that question. Well, it was interesting when I became leader, we got a lot of things thrown at us. We had protests, and we had Emergency Measures Act, and we had the war in Ukraine, and then we had the Liberal and NDP political marriage, we call it. And I'll be honest, we're not impressed with it. We're frustrated in that Canadians did not vote for a Liberal NDP government. And right now the Liberals are operating as a majority government because the NDP have promised their support. Now it's come with a price, and the price is heavy spending on big permanent programs, many of which are actually in the provincial jurisdiction. So the federal government shouldn't be spending money on things like dental care. We do believe in helping people, and we think the provinces should get the proper funding so that they can help people who don't have dental care, for example. But what's happening right now is the Liberals have made promises to the NDP, and in exchange for those promises, they just get the NDP support. And it's interesting now to watch the NDP support the Liberals, even, for example, in covering up the documents. You'll remember the documents around the Winnipeg Microbiology Lab that Parliament called for last June. All parliamentarians came together and voted that we should see those documents. The Liberals covered them up. Well, fast forward a year later, and the NDP are helping the Liberals to be able to not actually disclose what are in those documents. So whether it's on fiscal issues and massive spending, whether it's on wading into provincial jurisdiction or cover-ups and corruption, we're seeing the NDP help the Liberals. And the other thing we're seeing, and I'm finding this quite interesting, is there are many people who were traditional Liberals that are seeing the Liberals move way to the left. You hardly can recognize the Liberals, the Jean Chrétien, Paul Martin Liberals anymore, because their policy has moved so far to the left, and that's to keep that left flank happy. So we think it's not good. It's bad for Parliament. It's bad for Canadians. And we're going to keep calling it out, though, every chance we get.
Thank you so much, Joseph, for that question. Next, we have Marko Levitsky from the New Pathway Ukrainian newspaper. Go ahead. Marko, maybe we'll go on to the next one, and maybe we'll circle back to Marko. We have Hatham Hamad. Go ahead.
Hi. Okay. My question is, Canadians are suffering from soar prices in every aspect of their lives, and the Liberal government so far has done very little to elevate it. What would a Conservative government do to control the inflation and ease cost of living pressure?
Yes. Thank you, Hatham. That's the question. That's what everybody is talking about. I can tell you everywhere I go right now, everyone is talking about the price of gas and then the price of groceries. I mean, there are people who are making 80, 90,000 a year, and that's not a bad living. And they're almost in a panic. How are they going to pay their bills? So I'm going to tell you, first of all, Hatham, we have to go back 6 years, 7 years to when the Liberals took government. Things were good. Things were good at that time. And you might remember in 2015, Trudeau said he would have just a very small deficit. I think he'd said $10 billion. And that immediately ballooned in good times to $50 billion. And it went up and up and up. So that when things were not good, the cupboard was bare. So I will tell you, first of all, Conservatives believe in responsible fiscal policy. When times are good, you save, you pay down your debt, you pay down the deficit, you put money away for a rainy day, and you at the same time make sure that the country has a climate and atmosphere of we're open for business. So we want to attract investment. We want jobs to be created. We want to see our country flourish. The Liberals did the exact opposite. They introduced bills that shut down investment, that shut down jobs in our oil and gas sector, shut down manufacturing, added taxes. So they spent a lot, they taxed a lot, and they shut down investment. Then COVID hit. And COVID, yes, hit the world. And we had the repercussions. We had to spend money to help Canadians. Conservatives believe in that. But they spent after spending when times were good. You know the scenario. You have an understanding of monetary policy, and you know the budgets don't balance themselves. Then add the war in Ukraine and the price of gas going through the roof. And so you have this recipe of a country that has been mismanaged over the last 6 years. When times are tough, we don't have the resilience to get through it. The massive spending has added to inflation. So this is what the problem has been. We would have governed differently. We would not be in this situation. We are. And so what conservatives have suggested, especially over the last 6 months, are some practical things to help Canadians. Canadians say, well, what would you do right now? We would cut, as some of the provinces are doing, we would absolutely slash the GST on gas and fuel, and we would slash the carbon tax and the carbon tax right off the bat. That would save Canadians at the pumps right away. We also were telling, if any of you are from farming communities, I am, we would end the tariffs on fertilizer that was purchased before March 2nd. That's having a huge impact on the cost of food, and food security and food prices is a huge issue. And then we would absolutely end all the mandates right away. We have to end all the restrictions and get our economy, our tourism sector, stop any barrier from people coming to Canada, from traveling across the country, from getting back to normal. Those are 3 things that we've been suggesting over and over. We put motions and bills on the floor of the House of Commons. And, we've said that it seems like Trudeau, when he says no to us, he thinks he's hurting us politically. He says no just because it's our idea, but it's evidence he's hurting you. He's hurting Canadians. And so we're gonna keep asking, but I think ultimately, if we want to see a change, we want to see taxes reduced. We're going to need a change in government.
Thank you, Atham, for that really good question. Next, we have Bala Menon from the Weekly Voice. Bala, go ahead.
Hi. Good evening, MP Candice Byrne and MP Jasraj. Hi.
Hi.
Just one question. What does the Conservative Party have to say about these COVID-19 restrictions and a labor shortage which has hit the travel sector in Canada? It is now a real mess. And people have been complaining in the US and throughout the world. Now it's being known that don't visit Canada. The airports are a mess.
It's terrible. And it's the last thing that we need right now. And there's absolutely no excuse for it. Conservatives, we never have believed in a federal mandatory vaccine. We never thought that people should be penalized because they chose to get a vaccine or not. And that was always our position. But when you look today, over 90% of Canadians have at least 1 dose. Canadians that are going to get vaccinated are vaccinated. Provinces are lifting restrictions. Provinces have lifted the mandates. And Trudeau seems to be stubbornly attached to these vaccine mandates just so he can exert control over Canadians, I guess, although I think he's doing it more because we're asking him to remove the vaccine mandates and restrictions, and he's saying no, thinking he's hurting us. And I don't know if you'll notice, but I find it pretty hypocritical. He is traveling around the world. He gets on his government jet, and I don't begrudge him. He's the prime minister. He should be on the government jet, but he doesn't ever have to wait in a lineup. I was just at Toronto Pearson yesterday. He doesn't have to wait in a lineup, and he sure doesn't follow any restrictions when he travels abroad. So we find that to be very hypocritical. We believe that the mandates and the restrictions should end, and that would have a big impact at the airport. Because I can tell you these random tests, the ArriveCan app is just causing so many problems. Add to it, there isn't enough staff, and we've just found out that their budget has not been spent. They had money, they could be hiring people. But again, a lot of the policy the Liberals implemented during COVID, although were helpful initially, they were not incentivizing people to get back to work when COVID's over. So you have to wonder, they didn't think about the end result of some of their supports. So yes, if you've been watching us, we ask about ending the restrictions daily. We put motions forward, and we're just at the point, we don't care who gets the credit. The Liberals can get the credit for it. We don't care. Just end these vaccine mandates, end all of these restrictions at the border, and let's get things moving again.
Excuse me, can you hear me now?
Thank you, Bala, for that question. And I want to go back to Marco. Marco Levitsky, go ahead.
My apologies for the technical problem I had. I corrected it. My question is, what would the Conservative government do? What more would the Conservative government do to support Ukraine and to support Ukrainian refugees from the war than the Liberals are currently doing?
Well, boy, that's a very good and a very important question. Again, I'm going to go back a little bit because I think I've thought about this, Marco. I've thought, imagine we had a conservative government in power when all of these things were happening, or before they were happening. You'll remember it was Stephen Harper that was the only leader of G7 that said to Putin, get out of Crimea. He stood up to him. Imagine if we had some strong leadership on the world stage that would have not only said these things to Putin and said, we're not going to let you get away with this, but also had been building pipelines and been getting our oil and gas to Europe, for example, so that Putin could not have been funding his war machine by selling his oil and gas to Europe. So I'm just going to say that to sort of lay the groundwork. Secondly, we did believe and have always said we needed to be supporting Ukraine. Well, when Putin was threatening, and we'd seen he followed through on some of his threats in 2014, we believed we needed to have gone in earlier and provided lethal military support to Ukraine. So again, fast forward, Putin invades. Our call was and still is support Ukraine in every way that they ask, in every way that we can. I have gone out a little bit on a limb, Marco. I'll tell you, I've gone out. I believe that Canada should be advocating for protected humanitarian corridors. I think now when it comes to food security as well, I think that it should at least be talked about and it should be on the table, whether that humanitarian corridor and food corridor protection comes in the way of allies and NATO providing that support or giving Ukraine what they need so that they can protect themselves. But I believe that should have been on the table, or at least, can I say this, Marco, should never have been overtly pulled off the table. I don't know who goes into a negotiation telling, and frankly, in this case, you're negotiating with a tyrant and an enemy. Why would you go tell your enemy, yeah, don't worry, we'll never do this, this, and this? I don't understand that. But so I would say that, and then more the military support, I think we should be providing it. And we've got to buy those CF-18s. We have to get our own military in order so that we can have what it takes and be the leader in the world stage that we were once before. Ukraine, this is not over at all. And the sad thing, this has been, I don't know how long, 120 days now. This has been going on, and the lives that have been lost, the bloodshed, the heartache of the Ukrainian people and the Russian people, many Russian people who are heartbroken and suffering, and the death and destruction is just unbearable. And so we have to continue to be there to provide humanitarian support and military support in every way that we can.
Marco, thanks so much for that great question. Next, we have Rami Botros from Oxygen TV. Rami, go ahead.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. Good evening, Ms. Bيرغن, and I'd like to thank you for your leadership style in the sense of unifying the party. Please, I wish you all the good luck in doing that. My question is about handguns. What is your view on the Liberals' new legislations on handguns, especially given the fact that the majority of guns used in crimes here in Canada are illegally purchased or smuggled across the boards? Thank you.
Thank you. And I started my career, I started as a member of parliament in 2008. And I was the one who led the charge to end the wasteful and very expensive long gun registry, which was billions and billions of dollars. And it was supposed to help reduce crime, which was completely untrue. It never did a thing to reduce crime. So I learned a lot about firearms. I come from a rural area, but I learned a lot about firearms. And I learned a lot as well about gun crime. And I learned about people who legally own handguns and what it's for. And a lot of times people who legally own handguns, it's people who are in the military or police officers or sports shooters. Handgun ownership in Canada is very, very restricted, and it should be. I'm a big supporter in strong firearms laws, and we have those in Canada. Trudeau has tried to import the US problems, which are dire and very sad to watch. He's tried to import that into Canada. And our gun laws are 1,000 times stricter and stronger than US gun laws, and so they should be. You have to have a license to own a long gun. Handguns are already restricted and prohibited, which means they are virtually banned. You have to have a very special license and go through background checks constantly to get those handguns, and that's the way it should be. So we think right now a ban will have no effect, because the people who are using the guns to commit crimes in our streets are using them, they're part of gangs and part of drug activity. They don't care about a ban. They're not going to obey a ban. So what we think the government should be doing, and they've been a dismal failure at this, and this is unfortunately the way the Liberals always are, they're very soft on the criminal. So if somebody commits a gun crime, the Liberals have just passed, in fact, we voted on it today, C5, which actually reduces the sentence for example, committing a robbery with a gun. So on one hand, the Liberals are saying we want a gun ban, but if you actually break the law using a handgun, you now only have to do your punishment at home. Does this not seem insane to you? To me, it seems completely backwards. So we believe that we need strong gun laws, which we have. We have to keep them, let law-abiding Canadians own firearms for legitimate reasons. If they break the law or show that they have a mental illness or addiction or domestic violence, they should not have that firearm. We believe that we should be helping communities. Like I was talking with help communities that may have young people who are maybe getting into gangs and drugs. Let's help them before they get into that way of life. Let's stop guns from coming in illegally at the border. That's another huge thing. There has to be strong penalties. But when people commit crimes with guns and terrorize our communities, they need to be put in jail. They need to stay in jail. They can get help in jail. Give them programs. Help them get off their addictions, mental health, spiritual help in jail, so they cannot hurt the people in our communities. So I do not believe in a gun ban. That's all just talk. It's like the gun registry, expensive and useless. But I do believe in strong gun control, and I believe our communities deserve to be safe.
Thanks so much, Rami, for that question. Next, we have Srini Subramaniam. Go ahead.
Hi, madam. Can you hear me?
Yes.
My question is, madam, how do you think the Conservative Party could win the confidence of the ethnic minority votes?
Yes, that was, and I think it was Randy that asked me a similar question. So I think that, and I'm going to tell you what I told him. I think that most ethnic communities share conservative values. I think ethnic communities believe in law and order. They believe in fiscal responsibility. They run their businesses and their companies and their families in a very fiscally responsible way. I believe that ethnic communities believe in our country. They wouldn't be here if they didn't love Canada. And ethnic communities believe in freedom of expression, freedom of belief of religion, freedom to raise their children the way they believe is right. Those are all basic conservative values and principles that we would guide the country by. So the more we speak to communities and speak to people heart to heart, get past whether it's our differences or maybe our different upbringing. I'm from Southern Manitoba, so I might not, know everything about someone's community or their background, but I can find out. I can talk to you. I can tell you about my family. You tell me about yours. We share food. We share culture. We joke. We talk about the hardships. We build a relationship, and from that, though, the fundamentals of who we are as conservatives is what I tell you we will do. And so I think as we speak to people, to their heart and to what really moves them, I think that's how we reach communities. We don't reach communities by pandering. I don't believe in virtual signaling. I don't. I think if I disagree with you or you disagree with me, I think we can tell each other. And you might want to persuade me of your idea, or I persuade you of mine. And at the end, we say, isn't it amazing to live in this country where we can disagree, but you can live your life the way you want and raise your children the way you want to. and my neighbor can raise his or her children, and we can go to church. That is who we are as Canadians. So that's what I think that we need to do. And once Conservatives, we need to be done with all our leadership races, have a strong leader, and focus on reaching out to Canadians.
Thank you, Srini. Next, we have Nitin Chopra from Prime Asia TV.
Thank you, MP Helen. Thank you for moderating this. Thank you very much. Good evening, Ms. Byrgin. This is Nitin from Prime Asia TV.
How are you? Nice to see you.
Same here. Thank you very much. So my question is related to the high crime in Canada, whether it's British Columbia or Alberta or here in Ontario, we see crime is on high rise. Recent reports, they have indicated that crime to be an all-time high in Canada, despite incidents of sex trafficking, shootings, hate crimes and drugs, and even carjacking. Every single day we see carjackings and here in Ontario streets. We are seeing that repeat offenders, they are out on bail, and criminals, they are roaming freely. And it's very sad part that there is a political will is missing to control this high crime. What do you think that should be done to address this problem to keep our communities safe? Thank you.
Thank you. And I don't know if you heard some of my answer around the question around the gun ban and what I thought about the handgun ban. And I answered a little bit, but I'm going to say something. I do think that we need to focus on and do the work to help, especially help young people not get into a life of crime. I think that that's really important, that we support communities and we support families and faith groups. And I've come from a church, and I've just seen my church do so many good things. I'm sure whether it's mosques or temples or other faith. And I was at a mosque a few months ago, and I just see the good work. We need to, in order to reduce crime, we have to allow communities and faith groups and families, we need to support them so that we can have strong, resilient young people who don't want to get into a life of crime and drugs. But at the same time, when we do have people that make the decision to enter into crime, or they're very hardened, bad people that are hurting our communities, as I said, they need to be prosecuted. They need to be with the full extent of the law, and I believe that they need to go to jail if their crime suits that. And I think if you commit a carjacking, if you rob somebody, if you use violence, if you use a firearm, you should be in jail. And I believe in getting treatment in jail and getting help so that you can come back into society a better person. But the revolving door is really hindering the work that police officers do. I talk to police officers all the time, frontline officers that are so frustrated. They arrest somebody, put them in jail. They're literally out in sometimes just a day, a few days, or a few weeks. So yes, we have to help people to not get into crime. But in Canada, we cannot be what I call soft on crime. And I've seen the Liberals constantly soft on crime. Their C5 is a perfect example of soft on crime. When you're taking criminals who are committing crimes with guns and telling them that now we're going to reduce your sentence and you only have to do your punishment at home, that sends a very bad signal. So again, it's not just one answer. It is prevention and helping, but it is also putting bad people or people who are intent on committing crimes and hurting our communities in jail, if just for the fact that our communities need to be protected, and we have to stop the revolving door.
Thank you, Nitin, for that. Next, just a heads up, I think we have enough time for about 2 more questions. So the next one is for Rosemary Sadlier. So go ahead, Rosemary. Okay.
I'm here. Took me a minute to unmute. Thank you so much for taking my question. It's a very simple question. And my question has to do with public appointments, the agencies, boards, and commissions. And I want to know how your party intends to address diversity in those appointments.
Well, and I'm sure you're aware, in opposition, we have virtually no say on appointments. There's a couple of public House officers that the government will appoint, and they'll just come to us basically for a rubber stamp. But other than that, 99.999% the government decides. But I can tell you, when we were in government, our prime minister and our government really wanted to give appointments based on merit and not, they were not political appointments. So I like that approach, but I do believe that as we're going forward, merit has to be combined with looking at communities, and the communities have to be represented. So I think that we have to be able to, and it's interesting because I speak to many women, for example, Rosemary, about even running for office. And so many times women need to be encouraged to step out and make themselves available to be on, whether it's on boards or be part of political appointments. And I would say that other minority groups have to be encouraged and asked. So I think that we need to ask, we need to plant the seed, and then see these different individuals present themselves and be ready for appointment. And I think that when we're in government, that's something that's very, very important, that we can combine merit and fair and equitable representation from around the country.
Thank you so much for that. Next, we have Rakesh Tiwari from Hindi Times. Go ahead.
You have to unmute me. Okay. Hi, Candice.
Hi.
And good evening to you. As per media reports, Scott Atchison, Roman Baber, Brampton Mayor Patrick Brown, former Liberal Quebec Premier Jean Charest, Miss Levin News, and Pierre Poilievre are in the race for Conservative Party's leadership. You have done a great job as a leader for Conservative Party. And you are, as I'm listening to you, you are very clear on your thoughts and vision. You're answering all the questions. Why are you not in the race? Canada would love to have a female prime minister now.
Well, thank you. That's very nice. That's very encouraging. And I appreciate that vote of confidence. So as you're probably aware, if the person who serves as the leader in the interim cannot run for the permanent leadership race. So that was something that I made a decision on when I saw that our former leader was going to be removed. I knew that there would be a need for an interim leader, and I knew that it was something that I could do, and it was a very important job at this time for our party. And so, in life, you have to make the decision, what is best for the people that you're serving? Where could I have the biggest impact? And I felt that I could have the biggest impact serving as our leader in the interim, bringing our caucus together, making Conservatives proud again, and showing Canadians that we are consistently conservative and reasonable all at the same time. I felt very strongly that that was what I was to do. And I feel very, very happy that I did that. I think we've got some fantastic candidates who are running. The fact that there's been hundreds of thousands of memberships sold shows that. And I'm going to help in whatever way I can after the new leader is elected. And I'll tell you too. I do not speak fluent French, mm-hmm. And I think there are many, and even in many communities across the country, that are excluded from even dreaming of being prime minister because they don't speak fluent French. And I believe that barrier someday needs to be broken. I love the French. I love the fact that we have a bilingual country, but I do believe that you should be able to aspire to be prime minister and know one of our official languages. With the technology, with everything going on, that is now still a barrier for probably 87% of Canadians, is not a good thing. But I'll be honest, that was a barrier for me.
Thank you, Rakesh, and great points, by the way. Thank you, leader. So the last question before we wrap up is from Madeline Ziniak. So Madeline, go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you very much for this opportunity. And my question is, what mechanisms should be put in place to support Canadian ethnic media, as well as to ensure a level playing field for Canadian ethnic media, which is such a strong voice for the Canadians?
Madeline, that is such an important question, because I think when we've seen over the last several years money that's gone out to traditional media, and that is not only created an unlevel playing field, it's taken away trust and credibility that the Canadian public has in much of kind of the corporate media because government has supported them. I think that the best thing that the government can do to create a level playing field is do just that. Government should keep their hands out of media. I think that that's probably the most important thing. Things are changing very quickly, as you know, whether it's digital media, whether it's traditional media. Again, I'm from a rural area where our small papers and our radio stations, for example, are very important. I think CRTC, the regulatory bodies need to, as much as possible, keep their hands out of it so as not to have their thumbs on one and help one group and not another. So the best thing, to be honest, the simple answer is the best thing government can do to help ethnic media is get out of helping media altogether. The other thing, and we're seeing C11, which really is going to be shutting down people's expression on the internet and online. And I think that that's very worrisome. I think when you start to constrain and tell people what they can talk about and express on the internet, I think is very dangerous. So I think watching C11 is something that we're going to all want to do. I've also been, for me personally, like I said, I've been an MP since for 14 years, it's 14 years. I've always supported my local media. You know, I have some advertising dollars, and I believe it's important as MPs that we support local media and that we can support even our ethnic media with our advertising dollars. You know, so in essence, that is in essence government, but it's not directly from government. It's government paying for advertising. It's members of parliament supporting ethnic media and their local media through advertising. I think that's a reasonable thing. But the government just kind of giving out handouts and picking out winners and losers, which is what they've done with their media bailout package, I think is not good for Canadian media, and it's certainly not good for ethnic media.
Thank you so much for that question, Madeline. So this concludes the question period. Before I hand it over to our leader for closing remarks, I want to take this time out once again to thank each and every one of you for not just joining, but for this great conversation that we've had today. As you can see, through the passion of our leader, who I'm very grateful to serve under, that she really cares for Canadians and those newcomers that are like. We are so grateful for all the advocacy and the information that ethnic media provides. I'm grateful for the internet here at the airport for not giving out on me. So I'm very thankful for that as well. I'll turn it over to our leader, the Honorable Candice Byrgin, for closing remarks. And before I say that, actually, if there's anyone that has any other questions, please email them to Katerina. If you want a one-on-one interview, please request it through the leader's office, or you can
I have a short question. I have a short question. It's possible because it's a little important.
We have a really hard stop within 3 minutes. Please feel free to send that question in to the leader's office or to me directly, and we'll make sure we get an answer for that. Apologize for that. Leader, go ahead for your closing remarks.
Okay, and I've been talking a lot, so I actually, what I was going to say is we don't have all the answers. You know, that's the other important thing that I want to tell you is we don't have all the answers, whether it's as members of parliament, government, opposition. You know, we hear a lot about issues, and so we're always ready to give you an answer. But sometimes we need to do shifting in how we think and in how we view things, and we need to learn and grow and change. So as conservatives, our message, even to each other, you know, sometimes when we're talking about things, and as I said, we disagree, we hear from each other. And so I do want to hear from you. I actually would like to, Behrang, I would like to take that quick question, if that's okay, Jazraz, and I don't mind.
Absolutely, Behrang. Yeah, go ahead.
I'll take that quick question, and that'll be at the closing.
Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity. In June 2018, Canadian Parliament passed a motion to list the Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps, IRGC, as a foreign terrorist organization. In January 2020, IRGC murdered tens of Canadians in the intentional terrorist act by missile attack on Fly PS-752 After 4 years, IRGC is not listed yet.
Okay.
What is the Conservative Party plan to delist IRGC? Do you think
I know what you're asking. So you said short question, and I'm going to help you because I know exactly what you're talking about. It was conservatives who passed the motion to put the IRGC on the terrorist list. So we agree with you 150%. And I'm going to tell you, we support Iran's freedom and for the people of Iran to be free. And we are very frustrated. And you should be very frustrated and actually call out the liberals because they said that they would put the IRGC on the terrorist list and they're not doing it. So if you want it done, elect a conservative government. Because one of the things that I will tell you is we won't make promises that we can't keep. And our word means something. We're not going to tell you we can do everything, but if we say we're going to do something, we're going to do it. So there's my answer. And I'm going to, because Jazraz, I know now we probably have 1 minute. This is going to end. Thank you so much, everybody, for your very good questions. And I hope that I can meet many of you in person. Thanks so much for listening to me and hearing our ideas. I really appreciate it. Thanks, Jazraz, for your moderating.
Filipino Heritage Month. I wish that you will take a question from the Filipino community.
I definitely we can. If you can send that in, we'd be happy to either set up a one-on-one with you.
Filipinos don't get called in these conferences. I'm sorry to say, but thank you very much for.
We'll call you. I will call you.
We'll get in touch with you.
We'll call you.
So you can have a one-on-one. Thank you. Thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. Thank you, leader. Everyone, have a great night.
Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.